Hello and welcome to the Women at the Top interview series. My name is Regina Barr and I'm going to be your host today. Joining me today is networking expert, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Annie Meehan. And for those of you who don't know Annie, she is a mental wellness expert and she is passionate about showing audiences how they have the power to change their perspective in any situation. On that note, welcome to our podcast today, Annie.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I love being part of Women at the Top. Sounds good to me.
Yes, well, we love having you. You know that we've talked before in the past, so for our audience, I've had the pleasure of interviewing Annie. She's written a number of books, and so I'm really excited to have you back with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you've written a number of books over the years, and we were just kind of talking a little bit about that. And this book that we're going to talk about today is your 8th book, but some of the other ones were Be the Exception and the Pineapple Principle, at least that we've talked about on my podcast and very inspiring conversations. So we're going to be talking about a little bit, different topic today. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about why you chose to write Choose to Soar.
Yeah. Well, I fulfilled my 30-year dream, Regina, of moving from freezing Minnesota to live on the beach. And unfortunately, my dream of it being peaceful and calm and pleasant was crashed a little bit 11 months to the day that we moved here when Hurricane Ian hit our home. And right when it hit, I was so devastated, but people kept saying, oh, it's going to be a keynote. It's going to be a book. And I was like, I don't have another book in me. I'm tired. And I felt like as the storm passed, that I really needed to write this book. And the book isn't just about, it's inspired by the hurricane, but it's that, Regina, we all face disruption in life, literally, professionally, and personally. And what were the lessons that I learned that I could help other people after going through Hurricane Ian? And so that's what inspired the book.
And I do recall seeing some things on Facebook when you were going through that. And I really applaud you because you were very open and out there with what you were going through, which really helped, I think, a lot of people see kind of behind the curtain that maybe we see in the news media, or when the news media loses interest, right? The reality continues for the people experiencing that. So I do applaud you for being very open, honest, and real in sharing that with people. So I'm delighted that you wrote a book. You talked about the hurricane and storms, and in the book, you use that acronym STORMS. So tell us a little bit about what that means and how can it help other people who are navigating their own disruptions?
Yeah, absolutely. That is why I wrote it. And, we're almost 15 months out and we are still in the midst of the storm. And we're still displaced. We plan to move home in January, but the inside of our interior house is pretty good, but all the seals are broken on our windows and doors and the exterior is still devastated. But I decided acronyms are easy for me to remember. I learned differently with my dyslexia. And so I'm like, how can I make it simple? And so that first S was really about acknowledging where we're at. A lot of people say it's okay to not be okay. And people would say, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'd say, no, I'm safe, but I'm not okay. So the first S stands for silence, stress, sadness, and sitting in that. Allowing yourself to sit in that for a moment. T is about the timetable, that nobody gets to decide how quickly you move on. I love that you acknowledge, Regina. The news lasts about 3 weeks. It will be 3 years before our island is restored, maybe 5 years. And the devastation is real. It looks like a bomb went off on our 7-mile island where we live. So T is about timetable. Nobody else gets to tell you how quickly you should grieve or get over the loss or move on with your life, whether that's professional, personal, or literal storm. The R stands for reliable relationships. There are people that show up. And there's people that show up to just listen, which when you're going through a trauma, that's really what you need, is someone to just hold it. I learned the word trauma dumping. So when I tell someone what happened and then they try to say, well, I had it worse, or I went through, that was not, as an empath, I couldn't hold their stories in that moment. So reliable relationships are people that just come alongside you and let you sit in the sadness, but also support you, encourage you, believe in you, send encouraging notes or text or gift card to coffee to give you a break. O stands for stay open. I always feel like in trauma, in disruption, in challenges and changes, there's always lessons if we can stay open to them rather than shutting down. Like, what can I learn from this? What can I learn so that in the future, ideally, I can help other people? And the M is about a motivational mindset. And what I It's about being super intentional about what I watch, what I listen to, where I go. How do I keep my mind motivated when I'm exhausted, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm sad? And so I do really specific things of what I watch, what I listen to. And the S is really about soaring. So when I was thinking about this storm, I was thinking a lot of us are survivors of this or that in our life. A lot of us are spinning in that hamster wheel, swimming, stuck, just keep swimming. And I didn't want to stay stuck, and I didn't just want to survive. I wanted to soar above. And I think the soaring for me is about when you heal enough from your trauma, from your disruption, you can serve others. And soaring is about getting to a place that I get out of myself and I go, okay, who can I give back to? Who can I encourage in their storm? What can I be aware of that other people define as a disruption that knocks the wind out of their lungs or pulls the rug from underneath them? And honestly, in the last year, I've met so many widows. And there's a lot of things that disrupt our life, but I have met widows from 20 to 80, and they have shared stories with me about something that I am not familiar with. But I am familiar with the storm, and I'm able to apply these and be there to support them on their journey.
That's amazing. I mean, really, we could go into every one of these, but what's resonating with me right now is the stay open. Before we came on today's podcast, I mentioned a couple of things that were a disruption for me fairly recently. And I tend to be an optimist, a realist also, but my husband can be a little bit of a Debbie Downer when things kind of go sideways. And I just was determined to be positive and make the best of the situation, because really at the end of the day, we get to choose. I think you mentioned the motivational mindset, right? We get to choose our mindset. Nobody chooses that for us. And I just wasn't going to let some things get me down. And I also looked for the blessings in when there's a disruption in my life, because I always feel like maybe the universe is trying to tell me something or give me a message. So I do try to be, I think, what was the other thing you said? Well, the motivational mindset or the openness, staying open to what it is that I can learn and be and do in that moment. So I love your acronym.
A good visual for that actually just happened to me again this week. So this week we were back in our condo, but we're not living here just for the week because I have a speaking engagement in town. But my visual for me always is kind of like the cup, and the optimism is across the street's the beach from my condo. So when I walk along the beach, if I'm walking forward, if I look to the left, I see dolphins and seagulls, and I listen to the ocean waves, and I'm so delighted. But if I look to the right, I see devastation and buildings distracted. And it just reminds me that perspective. Annie, yes, there's always going to be hard stuff. There's always going to be wonderful stuff. You get to choose what you focus on. And this week I walked to the left, which is where the sun rises, when we went to the beach the first day. And the sky was pink and light blue and beautiful. And I saw 3 dolphins and then 2 dolphins and then 1 dolphin. And I was like, what a gift. Mm-hmm. I remembered what I loved about this for 30 years and why I long to live here and how I hope that someday it will be like that again. But it's not, and it's hard. But if I'm intentional, like just focus on the good, look for the positive in the midst of the disruptions. So,
that's fabulous. Yeah. Now, you have a presentation that talks about personal and professional resilience, and resilience is something that also resonates with me. So tell us a little bit about what are the steps that someone can take in their personal life to be more resilient, and is that different from what they might do in their professional life?
Could be, how about similar but different? And so what I would say is this. One of the first things I think to be resilient is to be honest. You kind of said I was open about how I am. I meet so many people, unfortunately, that are like, I'm good. And they are bitter inside. They are broken inside. So one of the first things that helps me be resilient is be honest about where I'm at. Be honest about my story. I'm not a Debbie Downer. I'm not a, oh my gosh, the sky's falling. But I am a, hey, today was a hard day. And what I love to teach people is in resilience, we have to acknowledge what we feel without apology. I'm sorry I'm stressed. I'm sorry I'm sad. No, I just am sad. I am stressed. This is hard. So the first thing I think is acknowledge it. And I think both personally and professionally, acknowledging it to one other person. I think it's important to know who you're acknowledging it to, and making sure it's a safe person. A second thing that I really like to think about resilience is asking for help, asking someone to help you. So the difference might be in a work setting is we always say complain up, never down. So don't complain to your peer group or people that you lead, but complain up. So if you're struggling, go to someone higher than you and say, hey, Here's 3 of my challenges. What I love to say about people in the workplace, especially, is come with a solution. Say what's not working, but say an idea for a solution. Don't just complain. And so really we're looking for mentorship there. We're looking for a leader, an advisor, a mentorship to help us stay resilient in the challenges. In the personal life, I like to remind people, I look for a friend. They can be a support system, but make sure it's the right friend. It's not someone who's going to trauma dump on you, and you might have to pay for that. So that could be a professional coach, a life coach, or transformation or executive coach, could be a personal trainer. But to stay resilient, seek support. Don't try to do it on your own. I do that by, yes, there's times I need to be alone, but seeking support outside of myself. And the other thing is really, really, and it's going back to that motivational mindset, be careful what you let in.
Mm-hmm.
Be careful what you watch. Be careful what you listen to. Be careful the people you're around. I really seek positive people. I really avoid the news. I listen to loud, uplifting music. And I think even in the work environment, if you're feeling gossipy and negative and there's a lot of changes going on, one way to stay resilient is leave the water cooler. A lot of people work from home, but getting in that conversation of, oh yeah, I hear this is going to happen, and feeding the negative amplifies it, right? So for me to stay resilient and strong, I feed the positive, not the negative, And so those are some of the tips on how to stay resilient for me, what I advise.
Yeah, it's interesting I jotted down what you said about be careful what you let in. I very, very, very rarely watch the news. And I tell people it's not like I don't stay informed, because by golly, you can get all the headlines and news you want online. But then I can do it on my own terms. And I absolutely, positively do not do it in the morning. Maybe I'll do it at the noon hour, but more I do that in the evening to catch up on things, because I want to be in control of how I set the tone for my day. And I found when I was doing it reverse, it really would bring my day down. So I think that's a really important piece of advice for those who are watching or listening in today. So thanks for sharing that. Now, I want to talk about another book that you wrote. And in Bruised to Beautiful, you talk about transformation, taking something broken and turning it into something beautiful. And I'll tell you, as someone who likes to upstyle thrift store items and things, that really resonates with me as well. So what inspired you to write that particular book?
Well, I love it. Good idea. Good analogy with the thrift stores. So people always say to me often after I speak, oh my gosh, you're like lemons to lemonade. Oh my gosh, and it never resonated with me. I was like, oh, I needed a lot more than sugar and water to become who I am. And so I was like, I love bananas. I love making banana bread. And I'm like, that's what I was. And the reason that resonates so much is because I think maybe not all people, but most people have had a moment in their life where they felt beaten down or bruised or worthless. And in that moment, there's 2 options. You can throw away, you can feel like a throwaway, like a bruised banana, or you can take that bruised banana, which is sweeter than a fresh banana, and you can turn it into something sweet. And that's part of that resilience too, Regina, is I needed a lot of ingredients. I needed counseling. I needed my faith. I needed music. I needed movement. Today, I teach a lot about medicine cabinets. What's in your medicine cabinet? And for me, it's about that movement. I think banana bread, when I give people that analogy, they're like, oh my gosh, I have felt beaten down. I have felt bruised. And you're right. It's not like 1 or 2 things. It's not sugar and water. It's a lot of things to become sweet. And what I love about the banana bread analogy is it's a lot of ingredients, but more than that, it's also warmth, which I talk about being in the sunshine, but it's also time. You don't just mix everything and go, okay, we have banana bread. We have to put it in the oven. We have to wait. And I think sometimes people see what I've been able to accomplish and what I do, and they're like, I want to be like you. Oh my gosh, you're so successful. And I'm like, let me be clear. I work really hard every day, and this did not happen overnight. This is 40, 50 years of hard work to become and to do what I get to do today. So,
yes. I love the banana bread analogy because I'm a baker. And what I also like about it, you're talking about transforming something, but you can also put your own mark on that. Like, if I'm baking banana bread for my husband, it has to have chocolate chips, or it's not banana bread to him. I like walnuts in mine. So, you know what I mean? It's not only can you take something, but you can also then put your own imprint on it. So I used to joke around with clients, no 2 zebras are alike, no 2 banana breads are alike either. So
that's right. Yes, indeed. Yes, I love it.
Now,
I like the clothes. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I love your I just like having some analogies, and everything you're talking about I can totally relate to. So you're on the right path with that. Now, the book also talks about ingredients for a recipe, which you just kind of walk through to represent a part of a healing journey. So can you share the steps or ingredients that represent part of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just being able to ask for help, I went to therapy for years on and off. And I always think when people ask for help, it's never selfish, it's self-full. And unfortunately, my mother's mental illness stopped her from getting the help she needed. And therefore, it really hurt me. And so I always want to encourage people, flower, I think I do. Flower represents therapy, and music, and being intentional about what I am willing to do to be the best version of myself, not only for myself, but for my husband, for my kids, for my clients, that it's selfish if I neglect myself. So I need all of those ingredients. I need prayer. I need to know I'm not in charge of the universe, and I'm not even in charge of me becoming the best version of myself, but I have to do the work. And a lot of people will say to me, Regina, you got to work smarter, not harder. And I've always felt like I've worked since I was 7 years old. I've always had a job. I always felt like you got to do both, right? Like, I'm not saying just grind. I certainly take time off. I vacation. I rest. I do so many wonderful, fun things. But I also work really hard. I work smart and I work hard and I work strategically to be able to write and coach and speak and do the different things I do. So I think each ingredient has to be added and mixed at the right time, and there's no straight line. So I might go to therapy for a while, and then I might not for a while. And then when the hurricane hit, I started having memories and bad dreams again, and I had to go back, right? Or I can feel myself. I don't watch the news, and people always say, how can you, aren't you worried about not being informed?
No.
There's plenty of ways to be informed. People will tell you, social media will tell you, like, you're informed. But I also have to protect, because it can be so devastating to watch how broken the world is, that it can start to defeat my belief that people are good and that there is good and that we can be good and we can change the world by kindness. So, through each ingredient, I'm sitting here with my book in front of me too, because I just love the pictures.
Yes.
I love the sweet banana bread on the back. But each thing represents, and you're right, the salt, right? The tears we cry. I was thinking about, all of a sudden I went blank and I was like, tears. Like, that's part of the thing. When people say, I'm sorry, I'm sad, I'm always like, I'm sorry when you're not sad.
Yes.
We need tears to heal, to release that pain that has been put into our lives or that we have had. And so often I felt bruised. So often I felt worthless because of not finishing high school, because of having unplanned pregnancies, all these things that sometimes the world and sometimes myself wanted to label me for. And then when I decided, wait a minute, that's just part of your story. Mm-hmm. That's not your story. You're amazing. You have so much to contribute. Do that. And so I think I want people to know that they have beauty within them and in their gifts. And when they remember that, they're a better contributor. Because when we just focus on our bruises and what we're lacking, not only are we not good to ourselves, but we're unable to share our gifts with the world. So it was a huge transformation for me.
Yes, that's interesting when you said the salt and the tears, because I think women have been culturalized that crying shows a sign of weakness. And I know myself, like, I would do anything if something upset me at work, not to cry at work. Now, maybe like if I went to a completely different building, different floor, and a different restroom where I didn't think anybody could hear or find me. But I joke around. I was in the ER getting some stitches not too long ago, and was very upset about something else. And so when the doctor said, well, what happened? I just started crying. And then I started laughing. I'm like, I'm not crying about this. I said, but did you know that tears are a natural sedative? And the doctor's like, I'm going to use that going forward, because, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, sometimes it's that release that tears can help calm you. But we as women, I think, have been culturalized to feel like that is bad. But to your point, when you look at a recipe, it's just one of the ingredients, and it's an ingredient that can help your healing. So if it works for you and it helps you, have at it. That's what I say. So
absolutely, without apology.
So you also have talked about in your book, on your YouTube channel, and some of your other writings, H3, hope, health, and happiness in the workplace. So tell us, what struggles have you found in having these conversations with employers, probably first and foremost, and then employees?
Yeah. I think with employers, they're saying, we know our culture is not as healthy and connected as we wish it was. We don't know how to get there. And I was just speaking on this topic with an audience recently, and it just kept coming to me before I went. And I've spoken on the topic, and it's an inside job. It's an inside job. And what I was thinking about that is, a lot of times people will be like really focused on the professional. I'm like, okay, except for we bring our whole person to the workplace. So if I am hopeless, if I am unhealthy, if I'm unhappy, I'm bringing that in. And half the time I'm not showing up because I'm staying at home because I'm depressed or because I don't feel good or because I don't have energy. So when we get to that, when we work on ourselves, then we can collectively. So I think that employers are coming to me saying, hey, we know we want to contribute to a healthier, more cohesive, more connected, better communication. And so really, I believe laughter is one of the best medicines, movement's one of the best medicines. So I start with sharing that I know what it's like to be hopeless, unhealthy, and unhappy. And sometimes there's times in our life that we're so beaten down that you could nap for 3 days and you'd still wake up tired, right? That fatigue, that exhaustion, depression. And so what I try to do is show them how to move forward. Like hope, we focus a lot on personally and professionally. Where have you been as an organization, especially if they're going through a big change? Where have you been? And do you remember when it was really hard and you thought, we're never going to get through that? And now look at where you are and what you have gotten through. And then how do you take it from here and stay open to moving it forward? And so I talk about being dyslexic and ADHD and being told at 21 due to poor spelling not to go to college. And now that I have 8 books and, I speak all over the world and I get to do all these cool things. And I'm like, if I remember thinking I was so dumb and now look at what I've already accomplished and being curious, being anticipant about what is ahead. How else can I continue to use my written and spoken word to influence people? And then about being healthy, health in that culture is recognizing a lot of people, when we think of health, think of just physical. And I'm like, health is so much more than physical. It's your financial, it's your emotional, it's your spiritual. And so I pick these 7 areas and I show people how to assess them before they address them. So they might be, I'm overeating. Well, I'm eating a bag of chips because I have 5 credit cards I've maxed out. So it's not really the chips, it's that their finances are out of order and they're overwhelmed and they don't want to share it. Then they have the shame. So I really teach people a lot about accountability inside the workplace and about like, how do we not shame people, but also not save them, but support them in being successful, and then hold them accountable, but encourage them, not beat them down. And then happiness, I talk a lot about knowing who we are and then letting that show up, but also knowing our weakness. So inside the workplace, making sure you surround yourself with other people with different personalities. So I love the DISC assessment. I'm a super high I, but I know that I need a driver. I need the DISC in order to be successful, right? I need to surround myself. So talking to organizations about where are you, just because you are comfortable with your personality, you need other personalities, right? And we can have fun together by laughing at how different we are, but also recognizing we need each other to support the success of the organization. And so, I love hope, health, and happiness. It's really about culture. It's about connection, communication, conversation. I have so many young people come to me and just say, I'm not comfortable just talking to anyone. You can talk to anyone. But when we work from home and we don't communicate, it's really hard to have a healthy workplace, right? And so
Yes.
I get to share lots of tips and ideas and fun tricks to bring people back together in communication, even if they're working remote, being able to connect and care about each other as humans first, and then as coworkers.
Yeah,
So,
I love that. It's so important because we spend so much time at work too. It makes me sad to think when people are working hard just to get by, or they're living for the weekend, because life is short and you don't know what tomorrow will bring. So you have to find a way to do all of those things in all of the time that you have available to you, not just try to do it on the weekends. So Annie, I know this is a shocker, but every time we chat, we always run out of time. And I'm just wondering if you could give only one piece of advice to our listeners and our viewers today. What would that be?
be kind. But more than anything, what I would really say to people is be kind to yourself. Because when you like yourself, it's so much easier for other people to like you. When you like yourself, you're going to show up and do your best at work and in your home. So be kind to yourself. Share your gifts with the world. When you feel down, ask yourself who you can go serve and be kind to. It'll change the world, really. I believe that. So,
Thank you so much. What a positive way to end our podcast today. Be kind. On that note, we are out of time. I want to thank you so much, Annie, for being with us today. I want to thank our listeners and viewers for joining us today. Until next time, have a great day.